Modern macroeconomics treats global monopolies, utility grids, and sovereign states as cold, autonomous machines. But look closer. Underneath the fiber optics and the balance sheets, every institution is a cohort of living human beings, 10-dimensional nodes of flesh and blood. We call the dangerous macroeconomic blind spot of treating these groups as abstractions the reification fallacy. We act as if the enterprise or the grid are alien forces, when they are actually the complete human being reconstituted across different classifications of capital. Global supply networks possess a deep physical and thermodynamic reality. These are sovereign capacity anchors, vast, complex systems maintained by human cohorts acting as physical stewards of global trade. These human operators manage the massive infrastructure grids that anchor our energy and connectivity. From the Panama Canal to North American interconnections, these cohorts ensure the system survives physical constraints. Our current macroeconomic paralysis stems from ignoring this living human core. By treating these distinct cohorts as cold abstractions, we have disconnected the digital speed of our markets from the physical reality of the humans running them. The friction we experience today, like trapped capital, seized supply chains, and profound biological burnout, represents a systemic failure deeper than a software glitch. This friction is the product of systemic schizophrenia. It occurs when different human cohorts are forced to operate on violently asynchronous time horizons. The millisecond ambition of algorithmic AI constantly hits the 5 to 7 year wait queues of our physical utility grids. We call this collision tetratic bleed. As machine velocity strikes physical reality, capital is trapped, and human operators become manual shock absorbers until they burn out. Injecting more master AI or centralized data scraping cannot resolve this collision. Those legacy responses ignore the fundamental tension between physical time and algorithmic logic. To cure this friction, we must map the 4 human cohorts comprising the global economy. The cyber cohort, or supranational capability primes, generate one-dimensional algorithmic logic. The physical cohort, or sovereign capacity anchors, maintain 7-dimensional thermodynamic reality. These operators are bound by the slow, massive physical constraints of the real world, such as the locks of the Panama Canal. The state is a cohort of civil servants writing 4-dimensional policy as code to shield citizens and regulate trade. Finally, the social helix represents the foundational 10-dimensional biological intent of the workers and citizens, anchoring the entire system. Deploying scale-free technology into this polycentric reality acts as a systemic contaminant, forcing these cohorts into a zero-sum war against localized boundaries. The tech industry currently operates under the meta-training fallacy, the idea that scraping enough global data into a centralized lake can create a model to perfectly manage the Earth. You cannot average the friction of a 10-dimensional world. Attempting to mathematically average localized reality produces statistical ghosts. This map shows what happens when sharp, localized data is sucked up into a central model. The nuances of municipal laws and biological intent are blurred into a gray average, stripping the data of its utility. Centralized algorithms cannot average out the strict ecological limits of the Colorado River. Those physical boundaries are hyper-localized and absolute. Nor can they ignore the localized physical intent required to manufacture a 5-nanometer semiconductor. These microeconomies rely on data that cannot be moved. Curing this systemic friction requires an architectural reversal. Raw data stays at the edge, and blank algorithmic capability moves down to meet it. Real systemic intelligence requires localized edge processing models. Centralized models are poorly suited for physical logistics because they attempt to manage the world from a distance, ignoring the operator's biological truth. The Zyro Hive architecture provides the routing fiduciary to move capability down to the human edge. Zyro Hive lacks an autonomous mind or policy authority. It functions as a one-dimensional cybernetic airlock and translation scaffolding, governed by a 15-layer ontological protocol stack. To manage sovereign data laws, it anchors 8 supranational regional hubs, providing legal airlocks for global primes to route technology safely. This architecture allows technology to be injected locally without triggering geopolitical seizures. It acts as a buffer, ensuring the machine serves the local ecosystem rather than overwhelming it. Because the Earth is an open system, legacy frameworks like Agile fail to account for the true scale of physical friction. We replace them with Sovereign Modular Coherence Orchestration, or SMCO. Phase 1. Reverse seeding. Human counterparties use zero-knowledge proofs to map localized friction, translating legacy constraints into a unified mathematical vector. Phase 2. In-flight transformation. Within a managed temporal buffer, cohorts execute goals while actively stress testing against real-time physical feedback. Shovels dig and code runs while operators adjust to sovereign and physical data. The asset adapts in real time within the safety of the airlock. Finally, the system moves to Phase 3, autopoietic collapse and ignition. Ignition is triggered the exact millisecond human operators verify all physical and sovereign constraints are satisfied. At that moment, the airlock drops. The venture collapses into a frictionless state, moving into the live network. This allows for the simultaneous clearing of fiat capital, algorithmic logic, and physical capacity. SMCO transforms the unpredictable sunk costs of the real world into a precisely managed, instantly settled architecture. T0 ignition initiates Phase 4, the topological inversion of the global economy. The supranational primes are demoted to a horizontal, frictionless routing layer, the exoskeleton. This inversion heals the tetratic bleed. The citizen, civil servant, and grid operator no longer fight for resources. They act as one unified, localized organism, the 10-dimensional living ecosystem. These two entities enter a multi-directional loop of co-creation. Algorithmic capability flows down from the exoskeleton, while the living ecosystem streams thermodynamic exergy up to support the computation. This installs the biological truth of the human edge as the foundational ground truth of the entire system. Legacy macroeconomics defines yield as printed fiat. The kinetic model calculates yield by the return of the fractured human to systemic wholeness. In this system, yield represents the capture of energy once wasted on internal friction. When these 10 dimensions of human organization align through the airlock, that captured flow serves as a mathematical measurement of the human system returning to functional wholeness. Energy once burned in a zero-sum war is captured as living kinetic flow. Systemic turbulence resolves into a smooth, powerful stream. The machine is permanently demoted to an intelligence augmentation exoskeleton, strictly subordinated to human intent. By passing through the prosperity co-creation airlock, we cure the polycentric friction of the Earth. We replace systemic scarcity with continuous combinatorial abundance.